Welcome everyone to another live cast with Ildiko and myself in the Coaching Connection community Facebook group. Thank you so much for joining this conversation today with Kellan. Kellan has been so nice. Ooh, where is he? He just got dropped off.
I lost him.
Okay, I'm sure he's going to be back. But basically, Kellan has been so nice. We had a bit of a handicap yesterday. One of our speakers, she felt sick. And so I met Kellan yesterday, and I really enjoyed my conversation with him. And I was like, can you please come today and share a bit more about yourself? And he's been in the coaching game for a long time. So he has over 12 years of experience. Oh, there he is. So he has over 12 years of experience in the coaching industry, and he's written over 16 books, most of them focusing kind of like on the inner game aspects of coaching. And today in particular, the topic that we wanted to talk to him about is fear of rejection. And, oh, what did I do? I'm gone.
I think that was my fault. I think when it said this meeting is being live streamed, instead of okay, I clicked go away. And that was my mistake. And I thought, oh dear, they disappeared. And I thought, I have been rejected summarily. And I decided I better rejoin. So here we are.
Never.
We were just mentioning about how we met you yesterday, and that you were so nice to come and join us today. And he promised you'll be the easiest guest I've ever had, and I look forward to actually having that experience with him. And so he has done lots and lots and lots of things, and he's going to tell you more about it just now. And just a few housekeeping rules. Again, please do not unmute yourself. Do not interrupt the conversation. There will be time for questions at the end, and drop your questions into the chat. Those of you who are watching this on Facebook, the same, and we will be more than happy to pick the questions up from there. And yeah, and there will be a chance for you also to have a chit chat with Kellan. So yeah, I seldom have podcasts with people who are very, very experienced in the coaching industry. So Kellan, tell us, how did you get started on the whole coaching journey, and what is it that you're doing now, and what have you done in the last whatever years that you've been doing this?
So the first thing I want to do is thank you. Doing a podcast, live stream, YouTube channel, all that stuff, there's a lot of labor of love in there. And so, yeah, there's some business things that can come from it, but it's a lot of work. And I want to honor you for the effort that you're making to add good to the world and to be a source of light and growth for folks. So thank you for that. My journey has been rocky and strange and difficult. I had a 30-year career in the energy industry. I had all kinds of high-ranking positions, C-suite sort of stuff in the United States and Canada. But it starts much earlier than that. We're talking today about fear of rejection, and that was drilled into me as a youngster. So my growing up years were full of discipline that would have been felony child abuse today, and I would have been removed from the home. My mom was a two-parent home, so kind of middle-class-ish, didn't look like anything drastic, but my mother had a particular thought about how kids should behave, and it was connected to religion, and so she used to beat the crap out of me a lot. And I remember even as late as high school, it started when I was very young, but even in high school, I remember getting dressed last in the locker room because I didn't want the other kids to see that I was black and blue because I was ashamed. And that's long since forgiven and over, but the mark that it left on me was that I believed with all my heart I wasn't good enough. And so I spent all my adult life, I never did anything about it. I never talked to anyone. I believed that it was my shame, and I kept it all inside. So I struggled for 35 years, from 17 when I left home until I was 52, which was 2007. If you can do the math, I'm 66 now. So with depression. And that depression for me was proving I was okay, making a lot of money, getting big, promotions and stuff, and then sabotaging it. I did the same thing in my personal life with relationships. So I got married and then ruined that relationship and got divorced. And I did that sort of roller coaster over and over again. And every time I created good success, I believed that I wasn't worthy of that and couldn't have it. So I was married and divorced 3 times. I have 10 children. I was in and out of rehab. I'd struggled with addictions and all kinds of stuff, all the while on the outside maintaining this facade of, okay. So it's kind of like movie stuff where on one side, someone would look and say, wow, look at that. And behind the scenes, it's like, holy cow, what a mess. So that was Kellan for 35 years. And in 2007, in August, and I'll tell you a little more detail on the story, I received a divine invitation, essentially, to change. And it looked like this. On Friday night in August 2007, I came home from work, and I had 4 of my 10 children living with me. They were teenagers. 3 were grown up and married, and 3 were living with, it's embarrassing to say this, but one of the exes. And 4 of them were with me and teenagers, and I was a single dad, and I was getting ready to go out and party for the weekend. And that would have been till Monday or Tuesday. And suddenly, before I went out, I had this urge to turn on the television. Now, that doesn't sound like anything, except I didn't watch TV. I had the latest, greatest stuff installed because you make a lot of money, you're supposed to do that, right? But I realized when I went to turn it on that I didn't know how. So I had to ask one of the kids how to turn on the TV, and my daughter came and, turned it on, threw the remote at me, and stomped out. And it landed on a television program I'd never heard of called Intervention. Now, for those of you that don't know, Intervention is a reality TV show about families who stage interventions for busted loved ones. And I'd never heard of it, and I looked at it, and the protagonist in the show was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. Well, I was using $3,000 a week. So my habit was $3,000 a week, and I was making so much money that didn't matter. So I was watching myself basically on the show for about 10 minutes, and I said, I'm not watching this crap. I turned it off and went and did some other stuff and got ready to go out. And for some reason, divine intervention, I felt compelled to turn this program, or not that program, but just turn the TV back on. So I turned it on, and this time I knew how. So I turned the television on, and that program started over. And in the middle of the hour, and no, I don't have a recorder, and no, it wasn't on the schedule, and no, it can't do that. I got that. But it did. It freaked me out enough that I said, okay, I guess I'm supposed to watch this. So I did. It went badly. The guy yelled at his family and refused all the help and stomped out. But it freaked me out enough that I went to bed instead of going out to party. And when I went to bed, I went to hell. And what I mean by that is I went somewhere, felt out of body. I was in a theater type setting, and on the stage was this whole parade of my life, very slowly, not flashing before my eyes, focused on suffering, the suffering that I had experienced as a child, inflicted on me, and then all through the suffering I had inflicted on everybody else in all the decades of this depression. And the experience that I had watching that was the most intense emotional pain I've ever experienced. I do not possess the words to describe that. And after some lengthy period of time, a voice simply said, "It is enough." I woke up, and it was weird because the sun was shining in the window, and it was weird because the windows faced west. So I got up, and I realized it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So I'd been somewhere for nearly 18 hours. And I realized, well, I've been invited to change. I have no idea what to do, no idea how to do this, but I've been invited to change. So I threw away $1,000 worth of stuff that I had laying around, and I quit cold turkey, $3,000 a week to zero in one day. And that was the first half. That dealt with getting sober, but it didn't do anything about self-loathing and self-sabotage that had been the cause of all this. The drugs and alcohol were just the sort of symptoms. So that happened 2 weeks later when the other shoe dropped. And in the position that I had, I used to get a lot of free stuff. I made a lot of important decisions that affected other companies, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, that sort of thing. And so people wanted to be nice to Kellan, and I used to get free stuff all the time, free tickets to this and free expensive, stuff. So one of the things I got was a pair of tickets to see Yo-Yo Ma Now, if you know classical music, you know who that is. And if you don't, that's fine. But in the classical world, he's, right? So I thought it'd be a shame to waste this other ticket. So I asked in the groups that I managed, who likes classical music? And some lady in one of the groups said, well, I do. And I looked at her and I said, have I ever given you anything before? And she said, no. I said, okay, fine. I'll see you there. Gave her the ticket. And that's it. We met at the venue and the concert was spectacular. And you got to remember now, I'm 2 weeks stone cold sober at this point. And halfway through the concert, I had this feeling come over me that I recognized from 2 weeks earlier, and this voice in my head said, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're insane. I've screwed that up 3 times officially and some other messes in between. That's not happening. And later that night, we were backstage because they were backstage passes. And the voice came back and said, comma, and you need to tell her tonight. So I argued like crazy because, she could have me arrested for harassment and, that kind of stuff because she worked in one of my groups, but you don't win those arguments. So I did, and it went about like you would have expected. Are you out of your mind? But she didn't call the cops and didn't have me arrested, which was nice. Within 2 weeks, she had her own set of experiences, and she resigned from her career. And I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts, and we walked off into the sunset together, so to speak. And about 2.5, 3 months ago, we celebrated our 14th wedding anniversary. Now, as incredible as that story is, the important thing is this. She was literally the angel that was sent to help me learn how to be a person, to learn how to tell the truth, to have a friend, to be a friend. I'd never known any of that. And that seems strange if I'd been married 3 times. I didn't even know how to talk to people. I'd never talked to anyone about the depression. I'd never spoken to a counselor. It was all this internal battlefield for decades. And she was invincible. She found me counselors to talk to and people. And, in the first 3 or 4 years, we had to get to know each other. We didn't even know each other. And all that had to happen. Oh, and I didn't tell you the most fun part. Her name is Joy. Like, you can't make this stuff up, right? So that was the start. And here's the important thing about that story is, as incredible as it all is, it's just an invitation. You, as a coach, have felt the invitation to do something, to serve, to love, to bless, to lift. That was an invitation for me to change, and I had to accept it. I had to start. I had to go into the dark, not knowing anything about what I could do, should do, needed to do. There was no golden path laid out. I've asked Joy a bunch of times, like, what on earth prompted you to walk away from your career and off into the sunset with a drug addict? Because everybody knew. I mean, they didn't know, but they knew. And she said, I just knew to the core of my soul it was the right thing to do. So with that invitation, I walked away from everything and thought, what do I know how to do? Well, I'd spent my consulting career doing really hard things. Like I was the guy people called when there were $10 billion on the table and a bunch of mad people who wanted it. Who do we do? Well, we call Kellan. So I did that kind of work. So I knew how to help people do things they didn't believe they could do. And I thought, well, what is that? Well, that sounds like coaching. So I went to some coaching academies and got some certifications and stuff, which incidentally, no one's ever asked me about, but I did. And so then I started to do that. And here is the key for you about rejection. Even though I had had all those positions of money and power, and at one point I actually had bodyguards, and I couldn't fly on certain planes with people because the company couldn't afford to lose me and all that kind of nonsense. Even with that background, when I started trying to sell coaching or enroll clients, I was terrified because as an executive, I was always doing that thing over there. I was talking about that, not this. And that, I didn't know how to do it. I screwed up dozens of conversations. I tried hard sell, soft sell, all kinds of stuff. And I was atrocious at it. And given my depression, I blamed myself. It's all my fault. I must suck. There must be something wrong with me. And so rejection was not just there, but it was the verse and the chorus and the melody and everything of my of my life in the first years when I started this. And so what I'm going to talk about now after this story, how I got started, is how that changed. Because today, enrolling clients is like breathing. It's easy, it's fun, and there's nothing difficult, scary, or anything about it. It's a joyful process of collaboration. And so what I'm going to talk about is the process from going from where I was to where I am, because now I charge whatever I want to. My fees are strong. My client enrollment is easy. And that wasn't always the case. So before I go and talk about the what I call the 4 steps of client creation, that's the story. So that's the story about how Kellan got started. The man you see now and the man you see 15 years ago aren't the same at all. And today I only have one goal. The goal I have for 2022 is I'm going to help 10 million people discover, develop, and serve with their divine gifts. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I have group coaching, I have podcasts, I have YouTube channels and Facebook and this and that. And I've written 16 books, like she said, to start with, and I have 6 more underway. And all those are just tools that I do because the only thing I do morning to night is live into that commitment to help those people. So that's the person today compared to the frightened, hidden, depressed, destroyed mess that I was 14 and a half years ago. So I'm going to stop for a second, see if there's any question. That's the story about how I got started. And I'm going to stop because I feel like I've been having a monologue a little bit too long.
No, this was great. I mean, you made us cry and you made us laugh. So thank you so much for being so inspiring. And this is really so interesting. And I think many coaches can identify themselves with the story. Many have like big turnaround stories in their life. I always say you can wait for the truck to come and hit your car, or something else happens and it's a conscious choice. So it sounds to me like you managed to have the turnaround before it was too late, but probably you were heading down the cliff. Pretty
No
much.
question about that. I'd already attempted suicide twice. It was as dark as it gets. So yeah, I had to get the 2x4 and the wake-up call and all that jazz. So yeah.
So that's why also I was very, very depressed when I had my turnaround 7 years ago. And for me, it came in form of 3 weeks insomnia. So it wasn't that bad. But I also worked in consulting. I also struggled with depression for many, many years. And just managing the turnaround right now, I call myself the happiest person I know. So I definitely can identify myself with what you were going through. And I think we have a question there. Please type it in the chat. We're gonna get to the questions at the end of the conversation. So yeah, so maybe you share with us the 4 steps and how did you manage that turnaround from feeling rejected and nothing was working for you and trying hard sales on people and to being where you are right now?
I'd love to. So the underlying principle is really simple, and that is this. When you have a conversation, like there's only one answer to every question about how to get clients, and the answer is the word conversations. No matter, when I teach coaches, and I do that periodically, I run 90-day coach training and sales training classes for coaches. The answer to every question I tell them right up front is the word conversation. So no matter what question I ask, if you say conversations, you'll be right, even if you're not right. And the reason it is because nothing happens until there's a conversation. Nothing happens. So when a coach comes to me and says, I can't find clients, the first thing I say is, well, let's look at your calendar. And you need to show me how many hours Are you in conversation? I don't mean posting. I don't mean commenting. I don't mean how many actual hours, minutes even, in the week are you in conversation? And a tool you can use to track that is something that one of the coaches that I've worked with calls the captain's log. And I think he takes it from the old Star Trek days, captain's log, stardate, blah, blah, blah. And it's like you write down the names and the minutes you have in conversation, like track them. How many actual minutes? Start conversation, end conversation, and just track the minutes and watch what happens when the number of minutes you have in conversation goes up. Now, one of the first questions I get when I hear that is, well, where do I find conversations? Well, let's pretend you weren't trying to get coaching clients. Let's pretend you weren't trying to do that, because I actually never look for clients. In fact, the sign on my wall right up there that runs my business says, I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. And that is a true statement. I never go into any conversation. And I probably have 8 to 10 hours every week, in conversation with people I've never met. So that's my captain's log. At least 600 minutes, 10 hours of conversation with brand new people every week. Now you might say, how do you create that? And that's what we're going to talk about. But I've tracked that so I can see where these come from. And here's the other rule. First answer to every question is conversations. And the rule that goes underneath all this, the whole basket, is this. It's not about you. The gigantic mistake that I made that made getting clients so difficult was that I thought it was about me. Am I good enough? Can I be impressive? Can I ask cool questions? Can I say the right things? Can I be something to, cool in this situation, or impressive or powerful or something? I made it accidentally about me. And when I finally realized, and this was gradual, it wasn't a switch, it's not about me at all. No one runs around saying, I need some coaching. Give me some of that sweet, sweet coaching. Nobody does that. What they do instead is they have a problem they want to solve. There are 3 kinds of people with problems. One is they're just living with it and they don't really want to solve it. It'd be nice to have, but it's on their wish list and it's not that important. So they're hurting in some way, something's wrong, but they're living with it. The second kind of person is a person, same kind, it's got a problem, but they're looking for a solution. They're tired of the situation, what it is, relationship, money, whatever it is, and they're actually looking for some way to solve this problem. And the third kind of person is a person that's hurting. They're looking, and they're also willing to do the work. We live in a double-click and download and double-click world that says everything that's wrong needs to be solvable in the length of a TV sitcom. That's not how reality works. And lots of folks, and I've been guilty of this, are looking for the secret sauce that they sell on aisle 13 and a half in some unnamed grocery store that doesn't exist. It's the sauce you can pour on your life today and get a different result. Well, there's no such thing. We have to do something different if we're going to get a different result. We all know that. So my sort of guideposts when I'm talking to somebody is I need to find out if they're hurting, looking, willing. Are they hurting, looking, willing? Now, that's got nothing to do with me. That's just me listening in an inviting, caring way while they tell me all about stuff. Now, just before this call was one of my hours this week with a person I'd never met before. She's an ex-pharmaceutical executive and is now engaged in some other activities for the last 10 years, but she came from Big Pharma. And in the process of our conversation, I got her to tell me all the reasons she was in pharma, all the reasons she left, what was dissatisfying, what she was going to do now, what she wanted to do, whether or not she felt like she had a story to tell, who she wanted to help. Did she maybe want to write a book someday? You know, all of that I now know about this person that I didn't know before an hour and 20 minutes ago. That came because of the sign on my wall. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. Well, I can love somebody without permission. Love is a verb that I define this way. To love someone is to choose to serve them with your spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental resources. I use the acronym SPEM, spiritual, physical, emotional, mental resources. I can choose to do that, and people can't prevent us from loving them. Loving them is to truly care. One way you show you care is to listen and ask questions. And when you come into a conversation with a person, people love to talk if and only if they believe and experience that someone wants to know. So if we bring that energy into the conversation of listening with love, people will talk. And they'll tell you all kinds of stuff. And in the process of that, you can find out if they're hurting, looking, willing. So here, that's all sort of framework about your own personal preparation. It's not about you. You need to learn to listen if you don't already, and present a loving and inviting an energy in that person that has nothing to do with you. It's a true desire to learn about them and to understand. And often I tell coaches that are having trouble that the first thing they need to exercise is their give a crap muscle. They have to truly learn to care about lifting and blessing and serve others in a sincere way that has nothing to do with what they think, what others think of them. So here are the 4 steps. Step 1 is go where they are. People are not going to beat a path to your door for any reason, or mine, unless and until you get a high enough profile that someone then might contact you. But that's a very long game. And, I have 16 books and podcasts with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes and all kinds of stuff. And I still don't have celebrity status where people are clawing their way to find me. But I don't care, because it's really easy to find other people other ways. So number 1, go where they are. Now, that can be in person. It can be online. We're just coming out of the pandemic, and places are just opening up a little. I had the opportunity yesterday to speak to a fellow, again, someone I'd never met, in Malaysia, who was an accountant. And I got a chance to talk to him and learned a lot about Malaysia and a lot about Kuala Lumpur and a lot about political skullduggery and stuff that's going on in his city and some of the big tall buildings they have. They have some of the tallest buildings in the world, and how they got built and what he's trying to do and how committed he is to his 4-year-old son and all kinds of stuff about him. And I never met him before either. So going where they are is a conscious choice to set aside hours in your calendar. I use colors on the Google Calendar so that I can tell if I've got enough hours spent going where people are. Now, we didn't used to have social media. Today we do, and so we can reach people all over the world. There's an artificial intelligence platform called Lunch Club, which you join and fill out some info, and it helps you meet people. It schedules appointments for you. You can have 2 a week, 3 a week. I know a guy that does 5. And they're random people from everywhere. And you won't have any idea if they're interested in coaching or not. And the truth is, to start with, you don't care. So there are an infinite number of networking opportunities, and they're easy to do if you go not caring what people think about you and with a genuine desire to learn about them. So step 1 is go where they are. Book some hours on your calendar. We can talk later, and I can give you 25 suggestions about places to go. Maybe you're active on social media. Maybe you're not. If there's ways to do that that's really valuable and helpful and make people want to talk. And there's ways to be obnoxious and there's ways to be invisible. But you can use these tools that we never even used to have, social media, if you want to. But you don't have to. But if you don't meet people that way, then you've got to have some other way to go where they are. They is potential clients. Now, if I was going where they are and I went to the street corner and was talking to folks that were homeless, I might do that in volunteer work and to love them and try to help them, but I certainly wouldn't be looking for clients there, right? I would be looking just to serve and to love, but I wouldn't be there looking. So you pick places to go where you think you might find them. Step 2 is what I call first contact. Now, first contact is a funny description, and I use it because first contact is a term in science fiction that talks about aliens coming to a planet, right? First contact with an alien species. And the reason I do that is because often when we go to a networking event and we're talking to someone for the first time, suddenly it feels like an alien conversation, like one side or the other has forgot how to be human, right? And in science fiction movies, right? What do we do on the Earth? Well, as soon as the alien ship comes overhead, out comes the military and we bring the guns and the tanks and the missiles and everything else. That's our greeting. Hi, welcome to Earth. I'm going to kill you. Well, here's the funny thing about that. We do that. How many of you, I want you to think, have been to a networking event where you talk to somebody and you meet them and they go into this spiel about whatever they do? It sounds memorized, it sounds gross, and you can't wait for them to shut up. So that is negative first contact. Remember, this is just two people talking. Now, here's the funny thing. I used to suck so bad at this. I was an introvert. I was a bookworm. I hid in the library at school. I was the least popular kid on campus. When I graduated from high school, the librarians knew me so well that they gave me a old copy of the Handbook of Chemistry and Physics, which is a reference book about 6 inches thick that we now don't need anymore because we have calculators and smartphones. But it used to be the standard reference for all chemical and physics formulas and everything else. And they were getting a new one and they thought, what do we do with this old one? Don't want to throw it away. Oh, we know who would love this, Kellan. So I got the Handbook of Chemistry and Physics as a parting gift when I graduated from high school because I was such a frequent participant in the library and read encyclopedias for lunch. So my ability to do these things that I'm describing to you started at 0 and has developed to 1 million. Except every time I think I'm really at 1 million, then I just go somewhere with joy and I realize, there's 6 levels above me. She's so good at that, I can't even breathe, how good she is at that. Anybody, anywhere, an airport, anywhere, she can do this. So anyway, first contact is just about saying hello in a friendly, positive, loving, kind way. You can use compliments. You can talk about things that are contextually appropriate if you're waiting in line at Starbucks, how the line, the weather, what's going on, what flavor of this or that do you like, grocery stores. Any of those places are easy. They are not hard if it's not about you. If you choose to recognize contextual clues, like if someone's really busy or they're looking upset or they're intense in a conversation, well, that's not exactly the right time. And if someone doesn't want to talk to you, this is where it's not about you is so important. If I'm busy and you approach me and I don't want to talk and I either look at you grumpy or I turn away or I say, I don't want to talk right now, I didn't say anything about you. I said, I don't want to talk. What we do is we create a story. Oh, I must look bad. I must have done something wrong. I must have said something stupid. I must be, fill in the blank. It must be something about me, but it really isn't. Same thing as someone says, I'm not interested. I am not interested. That is a factual statement about my level of interest in anything. It's got nothing to do with what you have, what you are, what you offer, or what you're doing. And so what we do is we turn those stories into something about us. And that's what I meant when I said it's not about you or me. So first contact is something you can practice and develop. I've gotten really, really good at it, but it was through practice. So I'll do something silly. I belonged to a BNI networking group for a few years, and every time a new person would come as a visitor, I would be silly and I would laugh a little and I'd say, hey, what are you doing here? And then they were usually with the person that brought them, and then I'd laugh and I'd say, I'm Kellan, da-da-da. But I would disarm everything by making it a little silly. Or, what got you up at dark 30? It can't be the breakfast. I'd say something silly to break the ice and to just get going. But you can practice with whatever makes you comfortable. I see Joy, my wife, does a lot of times compliments. She compliments some jewelry or some things that are over my pay grade anyway, but she does stuff like that that's really good. And then she gets into conversation. But the reason she can is because she doesn't have a goal. She's not trying to get something from that person. She's trying to have a conversation. Hi, how you doing? Oh, that's nice. Where'd you get that? And that's what you need to do. Because people won't tell you anything that lets you know whether or not they might be a potential client or you might be able to help them until they know you and there's some trust and some conversation going on. The skill is in the next step. So go where they are. Step 2 is first contact. Step 3 is nurturing. Now, nurturing is a short and a long-term process. It's a short-term process right there in the conversation by continuing to ask questions. Tell me more about that. Oh, really? So I'll give you an example. When I meet people on Lunch Club or some other way, it's a race to see who's first going to say, you get intuitive hits. Yeah, that's true too. You do if you're paying attention and your intuition's open. And that's another whole thing about preparing yourself every day that we may get to today or not. But anyway, nurturing is a process of, like in the garden, you're going to nurture the plant. That means you cultivate, you water, you weed it, you put some stuff on it to, help it grow well. And that happens instantly. So nurturing is being open, being intuitive, but asking questions, just listening and saying, oh, tell me more about that. And I've learned to deflect. So I can have an hour conversation with somebody and never say anything about myself if I want to. And I can do it fun and it's not squirmy or weird. And here's how I do it. They'll say, well, tell me about your coaching or tell me about your book or tell me about this or that. I'll say, you betcha, I will. And I'll just in a second, but I just have one more question about whatever, something they said. And it's sincere. Tom Chi, who's one of the geniuses at Google who invented Google Glass and stuff, he was in a mastermind I was in, and he said, well, just ask a question about whatever they said that you understood the least. Like, people say stuff, and part of it we understand completely, and part of it we think. So just ask a question about something you understood the least. It's really easy with that mind frame. I'll be happy to tell you anything you want to know. But first, I just have one more question about this. Tell me a little bit more about... And then whatever it is that I want to know more. And then they'll go and I'll just keep digging and digging and digging. And pretty soon in the conversation, sometimes they'll say, I've said all this stuff about me and I don't know anything about you. And I'll say, I know. Isn't that wonderful? I love it because I love knowing this about you and that and this. And it's so nice that you talk about this and how dedicated you are to that. And by then I'm armed and dangerous. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean I know enough stuff that it's easy for me to compliment them, to talk to them, and so forth. And then it's easy, and here's the key, to explain what I do in the words that they have given me. Oh, I help people solve this kind of problem. Or I help people that are in that kind of business, and it can be easy to relate it to something they've said because I've been listening to them for half an hour. So then the examples of things that I do or help with or work on come out of their language, not mine. And so it feels very natural and connected. And I'm not saying, well, I do, astrophysics over there. I worry about the moon phases or the chakras or some weird thing that doesn't have anything to do with what they said. And I don't talk about me until I know enough about them so that anything I say about what I do fits right into their narrative. And if I don't know enough to do that, then I don't stop asking questions until I do. And even with all that and developing that skill as much as I have, most folks are not at that moment you're talking to them ready to engage in the rigors of coaching. Coaching with Kellan is pretty darn rigorous. Like, if you're hurting, looking, willing, and you want to solve a problem, I'm the alchemist for the soul. I can help you do anything you want, but I'm not going to do your push-ups for you because I can't. I can watch you do push-ups all day and my arms aren't going to grow. So I'm really clear about that with folks if we get to the point of where there's some kind of coaching arrangement. So nurturing is a process that can go on for 10 minutes or 10 years. I have clients that I've signed that I've nurtured for 3 years. And by nurture, I mean I'll make periodic contact, see how they're doing, tell me what's going on. Last time we talked a little about this. You said you were working on this, that, and the other. How'd that go? What's going on? And they know I'm a coach, and they know that because by the time we've had a full conversation and I say, well, I help people with that. It's the work that I do. That's what I do. And I try really hard, if it's appropriate, to have suggestions and thoughts about how they might approach something or how they might connect or what they might be able to do. I do some coaching right then. And I've even been known to say, I do this for a living. Is it okay if I treat you like a client for a minute? And I get their permission. I'll say, well, if you were a client, I would say this, 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 and this. Now, if you were not a client, I probably wouldn't say that. But as a client, I would tell you these things. And, depending on how direct and how significant the things are, I might do it really light and easy and with a little humor in it because it might be like, holy crap, kind of conversation. That's nurturing, and it goes on for 10 minutes or 10 years. And you get to choose. Like coaches tell me all the time, oh, I'm giving away too much stuff for free. Well, you can stop anytime you want. Like if you nurture somebody and you decide that they're hurting, looking, but not willing, they're really not interested in solving the problem, they just want to complain, okay. You're free to make that decision and that intuitive interpretation anytime you want and put them in the not yet folder. And a not yet folder is a conceptual framework, whether it's an email folder or something you keep on a spreadsheet that says they're not ready now. Okay, well, that's, again, no reflection on you. That is, they are not ready now. The mistake is, oh, I must have done something wrong or they would be ready. That's simply not true. That's simply not true. The fourth piece, so there's go where they are, first contact, nurturing. The fourth piece is closing the deal. Closing the deal is where people often get weird because they don't know how to turn the conversation toward enrollment. And it's really easy. And the magic words are based on what you've told me. I often ask, well, that sounds like this and this, and we've had conversation about whatever they're struggling with. Well, is that something you want to fix? Have you tried that before? What have you tried? What have you worked on with that? Did it work? Have you had help before? Did you buy some courses or have you had a coach or what? And, by that time, there's easy enough rapport that they tell me, yeah, I did this, I tried that, I bought this, I did this program, I had 3 coaches and they sucked and it didn't work. And I'll ask, well, why do you think it didn't work? What was missing in that coaching relationship? And I do all that before I ever get to proposing that we work together. And, it's a surprising thing for me is more often than not, people will say something like, well, I don't think I really tried as hard as I should. I don't think I really gave it my all. Oh, wow. Do you think that was the reason? Was there something wrong with the coach, do you think? Or was it you? Or tell me what happened. And I get all of that information before I ever get to whether or not it makes sense for us to work together. Because I want to know that. And that more importantly than me knowing that, I want them to know that why it didn't work, why things weren't happening, what they believe truly is in the way. And I create a very safe place so they always, I would say 99%, I hate to say always, but 99% of the time they'll tell the truth. I don't think I tried that hard. I have a guy right now, it's a high-powered guy, owns a big company. And he's had coaches before, and I asked him the same question before we were in coaching, and he said, "Yeah, I don't think I gave it my all. I don't think I really." Oh, really? How would you know that? Like, what didn't you do? And he told me, "Well, I didn't do this, and I don't think I put the effort into it. I could have." Okay, cool. All right, what's different now? Are you ready to put that effort in? And we had that conversation before we ever got to the coaching part. So closing the deal is simple. You find out if they're hurting, looking, willing in conversation. You find out if they have a real problem they want to solve, right? You also then can come to know if you really believe you can help them with that problem, depending on what it is. And then here is the piece that makes the money conversation really easy. You help them dimensionalize the problem. If you solve this problem, what will that do for you? I'll feel better. Oh, cool. I love feeling better. If you feel better, what will that let you do? We'll have a better relationship with this. Oh, will it change anything about your work? Will it change anything about your health? And you can quantify in dollars and cents, even squishy things like it'll feel better. I know because I've done it all the time in these conversations. Here's why that's important. Everybody knows what if you charge $1,000 or $10,000 for something, some period of time. If you say the word 1,000 or 10,000, a person knows immediately what that is, $10,000 or euros or whatever. That has an impact. You know right now what that does and doesn't buy. So before you do that, because that goes in the one side of the balance like a lead weight, boom. Before you do that, you have to have something in the other side of the balance. And that means often people make proposals way too soon. Because if there's something not on the other side of the balance that is concrete, important, and tangible for them that they can see and feel and taste, when you say 10,000, the balance, boom, goes like this. And then you're busy trying to add to this thing to pull it back down. Don't do that. Don't talk about the money until you get the concept, the problem, the dimensions, the size, what they really want, and its value to them clear and present for them. I use a rule of somewhere between 3 and 5 to 1. If I can't get enough weight for the situation we're taking care of in this balance, then I don't even propose coaching. Because I know what will happen is it'll feel like this, out of balance. So we get to something really significant. And depending on the size of the problem, that will depend, that determines what I might propose. So when you know the problem, you've helped them dimensionalize it, you've actually already started working on it, and they're hopeful and they see some paths forward and they're excited about this, and they have a good sense of the dimension of that problem. Then you say, well, based on what you've told me, it seems like this would be a good idea. And you're like a doctor with a prescription. And you're obviously the expert because you have expertly gone through this whole situation with your skill as a coach. And you realize that none of that whole thing that I've just spun for you is about you. It's about listening to them, understanding what they want, repeating them back, getting them to tell you what the problem is, and drawing all this out. None of it's about you. None of it. And so when you say, or I say, and I do this based on what you're telling me, I can help you. But when those words come out of my mouth, they know it's true because we've already worked on it. I've dug into it deeply enough that when I say, yeah, I think I can help you with that, there's no doubt. There's no doubt in the air, in the energy, in the conversation. They know that's true because of what they've experienced. And then they'll say, well, how do you think, how can we do that? And the answer is, well, based on what you're telling me, it seems like we should do this. And then I'll make a prescription. Seems like we should work together for a year. Or it seems like you should join one of my group programs. I have a group program. I help people write books. I help do different things. So again, I can say all the right prescription because I've heard all that. So those are the 4 steps. Go where they are, make first contact effectively, learn to nurture, and then close the deal after you've made that kind of determination. And I find that in doing that, closing deals is really easy. And when I use the 3 or 5 to 1 rule, they've quantified a value here in this left to right. I don't know which side it's on for you. One side of the balance, it's 3 or 4 times the price I'm going to quote them. So when they do that, the balance is like this. Well, duh, of course I'm going to do that. And if they say stuff like, well, I got to think about it, or I got to talk to my SO, significant other, or whatever, I'll say, well, it is a lot of money. You better be really sure. Sometimes I've been said, well, let's talk to him together. I had a guy who owned a pharmacy, and he was really worried about spending a bunch of money, and it's because his wife was going to whatever. And I said, hey, I'm happy to chat with her about it and let her ask all the questions she's got, no problem. And so we did. We had a 2-hour meeting with him and his wife, and she asked all the stuff to make sure she was, her husband wasn't getting taken for a ride or some stuff like that. There's no fear there because I'm telling the truth all the way through, easy and clear. So that's the short version, and I say short because when I teach this, it takes, Q&A, and people have to get that feeling in their own heart. So I'm done. That's a long story.
Kellan, we had a couple of questions, if I may. One was about the nurturing phase. Doreen asked whether, if you notice that, so the question is, what is the conversation flow when you feel intuitively the fit is not revealed? Do you continue nurturing?
I put them in the not yet folder. If a person is just making excuses, and I can see that, and it's clear they're married to their excuses, and they're free to do that. They're free to live that life. I might even say it feels like you're really committed to these reasons, and depending on the relationship, I might call them reasons and I might call them excuses. You're really committed to those things, and that's okay. You're free to do that. It doesn't feel like this is something you're ready to do right now. Have I got that right? Or are you really ready to take action? And I make it okay for them to say, yeah, I need to, I don't know. Okay, good. Is it okay? And I'll often ask, is it okay if I get back to you in a couple months to see how you're doing with that? And I use that same thing if they say, well, I want to work on this on my own. A lot of times I'll do a good coaching session and they'll get all kinds of good ideas and they'll think, I can do this on my own. Okay, good. I hope you can. Is it okay if I check back with you in a month to see what your progress is? And most people don't. And so in a month or two, and you get back to them, they're like, oh, this happened, and oh, that happened, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'll say, yeah, that's often true. My experience is people do best when they have regular, accountability sessions and that kind of stuff. So, not surprised. Should we chat again about, if you're ready to make this happen or not? And again, it's you're ready to make this happen. So it's never about you. So the nurturing goes on as long as you want. You're free to stop anytime you want. You're free to put them in the not yet folder. You're free to put them in the never folder. Never mind, forget it, go away. I rarely do that because I have faith and love people, but I do put them in there. Well, I'll talk to you in 6 months, kind of. And then at once a week, I'll go through that folder, list, notebook, whatever, 3 or 4 places, and just look for the names and look for the intuitive hits. It's time to talk to so-and-so. Yeah, I got to send them. Hey, what are you doing? Send them a Facebook Messenger. A lot of times I'll use the dictation thing because I like the voice has an effect on people. So I'll just say the thing. I'll send them a little audiogram. Hey, what's going on? I haven't talked to you for a while. Tell me about blah, blah, blah. And you can just see what the nurturing does. So I hope that's a helpful thing for you.
Thanks, Kellan.
Thank you so much for sharing this. We also had a question on Facebook, and it's basically around feeling not good enough. I guess what I'm getting from this 4-step process is because, as you said, remove yourself from the whole game. It's not about you. And this has been also one of my realizations since the get-go. It's not about myself. And that gave me so much relief. And I think that's where it kind of like removes a lot of the fear of rejection. And by following this 4-step process, I assume that's how you also make sure that as you keep focusing on that person, at the end of the day, the whole conversation was about another person. So if they say no, it's basically they're not standing up for their own success. It has nothing to do with you.
That's exactly right. It's got nothing to do with me. If I've listened to them, I know whether or not I can help them, assuming they'll do the work and assuming that kind of stuff. It's like a doctor, he can give you some pills, but if you don't take them, he can't make you, he's not going to go home with you and stuff the pills down your throat. So you have to assume they're going to do the work. And if you know you can help them making a choice not to do this right now is exactly that. Them making a choice not to do this right now. If you choose, or I choose, to turn it into a story about me, I suck because I didn't make you decide to do this right now, you're free to create that story, but it doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve them, and it also doesn't serve the next person you're going to talk to, because then you go into the next conversation, whether it's that day, the next day, or a week later, with this sort of I suck energy around you, and that is not helpful.
Wilda had a question to you. Wilda, would you like to come off mute and ask a question?
I would love to. Thank you so much for being here today, Rena, and you two are amazing. You know, I hear things all the time. I'm very intuitive. My kids used to hate going anywhere with me because I did exactly what you said unconsciously. And so I would think I'd be doing something for 5 minutes. Next thing I'd look down, 30 minutes later, I'm in a conversation with a stranger and I know their whole life story. So I love how you shared that. And I also really was hearing that whole thing about joy, 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 joy down in my heart. You were talking about your wife and I was hearing that. And so where I'm trying to go with that is that we all have these things that happen to us, and you chose to make it a part of your future and make it bring you into this place where you're at now. I'm listening to you and I'm like hearing angels. Your voice is beautiful. You sound so youthful and young. And I'm going to start crying. I've been in situations where I've been with men who are exactly like you. And I've heard that voice that said you need to date them, go out with them, or tell them these things. And being the joy in somebody's life, it's sometimes a scary thing. And so, and I use that term kingmaker because I've had a few of them come back to me and say, oh my God, you made me that king, or you put me in this place, or you got me to stop drugs. And I was doing drugs for, you know, a big 50% of my lifetime. So I hear you in your seeing and being and doing and making a difference in the multi-millions you're going to touch. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with children. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing like you're also need to be in that space. And actually, had to do with euphoria. I kept seeing that crazy girl running. I only seen a half of an episode because I can't even do euphoria. But I just saw you in that space helping those kinds of kids some kind of way. I don't know what it is. So thank you. And thank you, ladies, for having this miracle man speak today.
Well, thank you for your comments. And I have been blessed with a radio voice and all that sort of stuff. I know that. I've been told that a million times. That's how I know it. But thank you for your kindness and for your sharing and for the good that you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much, Cal.
Okay, thanks, Rena. Kellan, the question I had was related to during your 4 steps, is there any time in there or specifically when you choose to share a part of your story or a part that connects with the person to demonstrate some authority or some experience or something like, or is it just much later in the coaching process or never?
I share at any time I feel like it makes sense. If I believe that it will serve them in some way, I might ask permission. I might say, well, I have a story I can tell you about that. Do you have time? And then I'll share a story, and it might be from me or it might be from a client. It might be a story of something. I might say, you know, I had a client with a problem like that, and I can tell you what happened. Would you like to know that? And then they have been invested in, yeah, I do. What happened? Okay, cool. Well, let me tell you, you know, and so, yeah, that happens all the time. And I have a million stories, and I didn't used to. Let me give you another thing. Some people say, oh, I don't have a story like that. I don't have such an amazing thing. Do you know, when I first started this journey 14 years ago, I went to a conference, and the speaker was Bo Eason, who's one of the best stage speakers in the world. He speaks around the world and is called in to speak like at the G7 summit. And he's that kind of a keynote guy, best in the world, right? And he was talking about his story about football and when he was a kid and all this stuff. And it was an amazing story. And he's done a one-man Broadway play and done 40,000 hours of actual performance. And so he's like way up there at the top of the universe. So he told this story and we're all in the audience just like hanging on the edge of our seats, just wow, ah. And when I got mad at the end, because he was selling a 3-day boot camp to learn to tell your story and everything else. And I thought, and I'd already spoken at lots of conferences and everything in my executive position because I did that. But now I was moving to this coaching thing and I had this terrifying thing about me. And here's what I said to myself. I got up at the end of the conference, or near the end, before it was quite over, and I wasn't going to buy his stupid stuff, not because I didn't think he was good, because he was blowing everybody's mind. But I got up, I walked out of the room, and I was in tears, in frustration, not happiness or impressedness or any of that, in frustration. Well, if I had a story like his, I could do that too. But me, I got nothing. And I stomped out of the conference saying out loud, me, I got nothing. And 16 books later and 50 million conferences and stories and everything later, not only do I not have nothing, I have a million, and I have a million more clients, not a million, 1,000 more client stories. But I started from the place of me, I got nothing. And so to answer your question, yes, I tell stories all the time. I almost always get permission. I tell them short and long, depending on sensitivity and the situation. And I always do it if I think that there's something in it for them. If there'll be a place where they can touch it in their heart. That's the reason. It's never about who I am. It's about, do I believe this story will have a hook for them to see their own opportunity? Does that help?
Thank you so much, Kellan. So how can people connect with you? Those of us who want to learn more about you, check out your books and such. So how can people
So that's a wonderful, juicy question, and I'll tell you, and it's really simple. All you have to do is spell my name right. With a name like Kellan Fluckiger, I can't hide. So Amazon, I've got books all over the place. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, anywhere you want. I can't hide. Okay, Kellan Fluckiger. So if you spell my name right, you can connect with me anywhere you want. If you want to have a conversation, just tell me. Okay, and we can have a, guess what? Conversation. So, and it will be exactly like you have heard today. It will be me trying to find out about you because I want to. I really want to. So you can connect with me anywhere you want. And all you have to do is spell my name right and you can find me. I've got a podcast that I started at the beginning of the pandemic. It's got 600 and something episodes, daily 15 minutes, called Your Ultimate Life, creating a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your divine gifts, books, and all the social media. So anywhere you want. And the only requirement is you have to spell my name right, and then I can't hide.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your life experience and your stories and your advice and suggestions. I've got a hiccup. Sorry about that. I was drinking and it's just not going away. I don't know what's happening. So who's thinking about me? Excellent. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Those of you who have been watching us also on Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in as usual, and see you next Tuesday. Actually, we're going to be announcing a very interesting event for next Tuesday. And thank you so much. I'm going to stop live stream.
Thank you very much.